Hello,
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Archie.
I gotta leave about 4:20, Scott, just to let you know.
I hope we're done long before that.
Good.
Okay.
I have to leave at 4:19.
Well, I gotta leave at 4:17 now. It just changed. It's funny. I'm doing all these Zoom meetings with like East Side Business Association and Rotary, and be honest with you, there isn't a whole lot of people at those meetings either. So just tells you that
Yeah,
COVID has really put a hamper in a lot of things.
I think everybody would love to see it change, obviously, but there's still a lot of concern out there, even with the vaccine availability.
Wow, what's coming out now is kind of scary.
These variants, yeah, that is a little scary.
things are ramping up quite a bit. We're now back up over 7% rates, and
Yep,
10% is shutdown.
that doesn't sound good.
Hi, Don. The mayor is not
everybody.
muted, and he sounds like it.
Your garage floor looks great, Don.
Thanks. He was over here this morning and he cut all the joints this morning.
Oh, okay.
So now I can't, because it's so dang cold, I can't park on it for almost 2 weeks.
Oh, I suppose, yeah.
So it is what it is.
So who did the work?
Well, I went through Rosbeck, and what was it? It's Unlimited Concrete Concepts is the name of the company.
Okay.
So evidently that's the new concrete contractor that Rosbeck uses. The old guy that did our patio and stuff like that, he retired. So, and we will be getting a new garage door probably at the end of the week.
Oh,
So
what was wrong with the other one?
well, it was 2 inches shorter on one end than it was on the other end.
Oh, geez.
So didn't look very good. It was kind of sloped.
That could be a problem.
Yep. Oh,
But at least you're not golfing today. It's snowing right now.
no, I know. It's just ridiculous. So I was supposed to golf tomorrow, but I have a funeral to go to tomorrow, and it's outside. So that should be interesting.
Yeah.
Sure cooled off.
No kidding. It's going to be almost 2 weeks before it gets back into the 60s again.
Yeah, so much for that. So much for the warm weather, and road restrictions came off Monday, and everybody was expected to go because of all they were all excited because of this warm weather, and now we're back into realization.
What's
Well-
going on? What's going on 6th Street, Scott?
That's the sewer. The sewer is being dug into the project over there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where the sewer connection is.
We got the whole street blocked off.
Yep. Yeah, that's a deep connection there.
Any complaints?
No. No, surprising.
Oh.
Ah. Well, if it's just the three of us, geez, maybe I'll grab a beer or something. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I don't know. Robert's definitely not going to be here. And I know he said he was going to get in touch with Kevin, but I didn't hear from Kevin, and so I'm assuming he's going to be here. Tom said he was going to at the business association meeting. He said he was going to try to be on, depending on how his computer treated him, is what he said.
Well, I know the concrete contractors were not very happy that Shifsky's weren't open yet.
Yeah.
because they had to drive all the old concrete up to Forest Lake.
Oh, wow.
They jackhammered it, and it took them, because of road restrictions last week, it took them 3 trips because they had to use a lighter than normal dump truck.
Wow. Yeah. Wonder, Fradlone, I wonder if Fradlone's not taking any, because that's another location. They take concrete for recycle over there too, but maybe they weren't open either.
Nope.
Wow.
Well, it's gotta be frustrating, especially it's right in the backyard.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what they were really, I don't want to say they were whining, but they were complaining a little bit about the fact that it would have been, a 10-minute trip there and back.
Wow.
In the end, it was closer to an hour, and they had to make 3 trips.
Oh, geez.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
And then because they didn't pour it, the road restrictions came off this week.
Yep.
They would have done it last week, they would have had to have 2 separate loads of concrete because they couldn't have,
Yeah.
the weight would have been too much for the whole pour.
Sure.
And so it worked out pretty good
Good.
that way. We only got one, they got it all done in one pour.
Yeah. That's good.
Well, I elect Archie in charge. Oh, no, Kevin's here. Good.
Yep. There's our acting chair is here. He signed in. There's
Good.
Kevin.
Otherwise, I was gonna have Archie do the meeting.
I would like to have Archie do the meeting since I'm kind of not an expert at this yet. Especially since we're being videotaped. Give me a couple more sessions.
I know the
You
problem.
look fine, Kevin. You look like you should be in charge.
I think let's see, we've got Kevin, Don. So Tom's not here yet, and I don't know if he will be. He said he was going to try to make it. Again, depending on computer. So Tom would be the only other one. Brett, assuming Brett was going to be, he talked about it at the Business Association meeting. And then Scott Thorson, I haven't heard anything there, so I'm not sure about that. So we may have what we're going to have.
All right.
All right, Kevin.
Well, what do you want me to do?
So have you got the agenda in front of you?
I do.
Number 1,
Number 1.
call.
Hold on. I have to do this. I moved all my computers out of my reflex operation because we're putting in new carpeting. So I got to do this over my phone practically.
Oh, not a problem.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see here. Okay. Call to order.
Good job.
I got it. Baby steps, guys.
Baby steps. Here we go.
Well, we'll have Lisa do roll call.
Perfect. Oh, Lisa, you're muted.
You're muted.
Okay, we have
Now you're
Robert
better.
Yu is an excused absence. Kevin Fuller,
Here.
Don Jensen,
Here.
Tom Shifty is absent. Archie Vickerman,
Here.
Terry Furlong,
Here.
Scott Thorson. We'll mark him as absent. Scott Dudak
Here,
and Brett Gary. We'll mark him as absent for now as well.
And then Kevin, just do a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We don't
Okay.
have a consent.
Meeting open to the public. I don't believe we have anybody here for that either.
Yep. And then Kevin, what I do is just turn it over to Scott.
Okay, Scott, take it from here.
Right.
I'm learning, guys.
That's a good delegation. I like that, Kevin.
So the
Great
first,
job.
the first one that we have on the agenda is to follow up discussion on the past joint meeting that was EDA and Planning Commission. So just wanted to bring that back with some follow-up discussion with that. And Lisa had made some notes from that previous meeting that I have here on kind of some action items, I think that was discussed there. And some of them are, things that we can do from staff level, others that we should talk about here about setting something up. So the first one that was on the list was to plan a quarterly EDA Planning Commission meeting. And so I don't know if we want to look at, certain dates with that. Obviously, we've got the Planning Commission, their meeting times, but Lisa, I don't know, was there any discussion, do you recall, if again, we hold those meetings on an off meeting time for the Planning Commission, so the Planning Commission meets on their first meeting of the month. Maybe we set up the quarterly meetings with the EDA Planning Commission on a non-regularly scheduled meeting.
That's what we had done previously was on a Thursday. And it seemed to work well. We had great attendance. There was not anything set in stone, but I think tentatively we should do that. And then if in fact we find that it doesn't work well, we can make changes.
Yeah. So with that said, we would have, let's see, the Planning Commission is on the first Thursday of the month. So I don't know, we want to look at the, the third Thursday of each month for Planning Commission wise on a quarterly basis.
Sounds good to me.
That sound
Yeah, that-
okay?
That works for me.
Okay.
What time would we have that at? It's at 3 o'clock?
No, 6:30 in the evening.
Okay, that's better for me too.
Yep. Okay, so Lisa will take those notes. So we'll plan the third Thursday quarterly at 6:30.
So when would our first one be then, Lisa?
Mm,
Let's see, so we just met, what, in March?
March, June, or July, it would be July.
So
Third-
July.
third week of July.
15th. July 15th, Thursday, July 15th.
Okay,
All right. And maybe what we can do, Lisa, we could set the quarterly to get us through the year. And then we would, I think, get us back on schedule, next year on an actual quarterly in the calendar, because we're a little out of sync now.
Sure.
But we could do that for the following year.
All right.
Okay, so that was the first item. And then the other one we just had on there was to add the EDA and the Planning Commission to OpenGov on our workflows for permits. And what that is, that's OpenGov is a new software that we're using internally for zoning permit review. So what that would do is make sure that the Planning Commission and EDA is in sync with new projects coming in. So there's really no action item, I don't think there. Lisa, any other follow-up with that?
Yes, that's definitely something that we're going to have to figure out what the workflow would be. If in fact we want to include people on the commission, just because we are under time constraints with these permits
Right,
and applications. So it's something that we need to think through before we implement.
right. And I know there's been some question, we've been back to meeting on a monthly basis, and there's been some comment, I think, about from others that, do we need to meet every month, or should we be meeting, every other month? But again, like Lisa just mentioned with this, if a plan review comes in or a permit application, we need to respond to it quickly because they've only got 60 days or it automatically goes into effect. So we don't have long periods of time. So any thoughts, I guess, from the group on, we can certainly, when something comes in, get it added to the group. And if we had to call, if we didn't have a meeting planned, we could call a meeting to do a review on that specific project.
We have any anticipation, the number of projects that might be in the works that we can anticipate moving forward, Scott, or is that just kind of an impossibility?
I think it's going to be pretty small numbers because, I think, items that came, items similar to like when Caring for Cats was, or when that building was sold and the transition for them to go in, or the former K&J Catering building, and something like that came in. But it's not very frequently that we're having, significant sales or changes in buildings like that in downtown. I don't think this is going to be a frequent deal.
So would it behoove us, instead of having a scheduled meeting, to step through that review, to schedule meetings as needed, for an example, should those requests come our way?
That's what I think. I mean, because what we could do, we don't necessarily have to put it into the workflow of OpenGov, but because Lisa gets that notification right away. So if a project of that significance that's coming in, we could have it so Lisa, it triggers that we could put out a request for a special meeting, or if it's within a timeline of a meeting that we've got scheduled, we would just add it to the agenda.
Okay.
Another thought I have on that is maybe I could just send out an email with a brief description, and if people want to weigh in, then we'd know whether or not we need to schedule something.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep. Any other thoughts, or does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah, it does to me.
Okay.
Yep.
The other one was, it was listed as a mandatory concept plans to city staff and planning commission before an application is submitted. And I think it was just that. I mean, Lisa, you remember what that was on your note on that, what they were trying to get to?
If I remember correctly, I think Robert would just like for everyone to have a heads up on what's coming, and have some time to think about it. But I'm not sure how we would go about doing that, because we really don't know until an application is submitted, is what I've been told. Like, quite often a sale can happen before we're really even aware that it's in the works.
Right. I was just gonna say, we have no ability to stop a real estate transaction or a sale. I mean, we're only able to do a plan review and things of what they're proposing. And if the sale's already taken place, we have no impact on that.
Right. Okay. So I don't think we need any action on that one then.
But Scott, correct me if I'm wrong or whatever, does a person who's buying a building, does he go through the process first to find out if that business is going to be, if he's going to be able to open the business in that building before he buys it?
No. I mean, they don't have to. There's no regulation that they could do it. They can go in and buy it, and then come to us after the fact with their proposal. I mean, that's the risk that they're running. If they buy a building and they're thinking they're going to open X, Y, or Z, and if they haven't done any background to see if it's allowed by zoning or anything like that. But no, we have no.
So I think that's, what's kind of happening right now at the Lilly building. We don't know, it's being sold, but we really don't know who's going to be operating that building.
No, we don't know who or what. And again, on the real estate side, we have no way to control that. I mean, they you know, anybody could be buying a building, they're gonna use it for office space or whatever, or they're gonna use it for who knows what, but yeah, unless they come forward on their own, and we have nothing to limit the sale or prevent that.
So there's no provision for the buyer or the seller to even be aware or be concerned about potential usage of that building or any building.
Well, I think it's their own due diligence that a buyer would be wanting to, you know, to
Yep.
do that before they sign a purchase agreement. You know, it'd be terrible to have a buyer, you know, buy a building and then bring the plans forward and find out that that doesn't meet the zoning requirements of the location it's in. But it's purely the buyer's obligation.
Makes sense.
So guys,
I cannot imagine, I mean, we bought 40 properties. I cannot imagine not going to at least the city manager to find out if the concept of what you're doing is acceptable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You really don't do due diligence if you don't do that.
Right?
Agree.
Another thing that was brought up in the meeting was the fact that the zoning is pretty broad and it could cover a lot of different business types. So even though it might be approved per the zoning ordinance, it might not be something that's really desirable for other people in the community. But being as that it's approved in the zoning ordinance, there's really nothing we could do to prevent them from running that business there.
so if I understand this correctly, if somebody wanted to open up another bar or 2 bars or 3 bars downtown, they could do that if they had the buildings.
Correct?
And we got to change that because we don't need any more of that downtown. In my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, restaurants, I could see it. We don't even have one restaurant, but to have more bars, it seems like something we would have to try to avoid.
Yeah, and it would be about the only way that we could control to do that. We'd have to, you know, limit the number of liquor licenses or something like that. But currently, we've got licenses available, and as long as they, you know, it meets the zoning and all that, there would be nothing preventing it.
Okay. I wish we could have more say in what's happening as these buildings get turned over and possibly torn down. If they get torn down, then it's a different story. Then they'd have to resubmit all kinds of documents to approve a new building. But, you know, I hate to see somebody come downtown and say, I'm going to build a nudie bar or something like that in downtown North St. Paul because the zoning allowed it to happen. And from what I understand, it's like there's nothing we can do to stop it. That seems ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, unless they get into a special use permit or a variance or something, it's difficult to stop something if it falls within the zoning requirements. You know, if you look at doing districts, I suppose, and we'd have to follow the legalities of that. But, you know, it was kind of like when we had the discussion with the pawn shops. There we had set up that there was a specific number of allowances within a district. You know, so maybe if we looked at doing something like that there was X number of bars allowed in the, you know, this district or something like that. But again, it would be a limiting factor.
Mm-hmm.
So to Kevin's point, I mean, we have to have something in place for, you know, adult entertainment or something.
Yes,
That is in place.
right, that is in place.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
something like that is addressed in the ordinance, but, you know, these other things that we talked about, if another restaurant or bar or something like that wanted to come in, as long as we've got the liquor license open and available and they meet the zoning requirements, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion.
Okay.
And like
There's
Robert,
Tom Shiskey is joining us now.
Hi, Tom.
he's muted.
You're muted, Tom.
All right, I finally found the right meeting.
Did you learn anything in the other ones that you were just in?
Yeah, was anything going on?
Nothing. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I'm just sitting there watching a blank screen going, something ain't right.
Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Well, good to finally be here.
All right, good.
So I know, I think that's something that we can follow up with in discussion with with zoning and planning, with all of that, maybe in some of these our joint meetings, but I'll also bring it up, we can talk about it with our planner, on some of those, because I hear that, not only with this group, Robert has brought that up before in the past, and, as we're continuing to fill in spaces, the few that we have left in the downtown, make sure that it's really something that everybody would be complimentary to the city.
Well, I think a good example right now is what's happening. I mean, Lilly Building is probably gonna be sold. We don't know what's gonna go in there, and it's a big building.
Yep. Yep.
So,
So, yeah, we'll see what comes forth.
It appears that in some aspects, we may find ourselves between a rock and a hard place, and that we don't want to be dictatorial as to what we allow in the city, but by the same token, we also like to be able to monitor what is coming into the city and what intentions are say, a new buyer. And I'm not sure if that's a fine line for us or how we manage that.
Yeah. Well, you would just hope that, a buyer is going to contact and follow through, like Don said, that if you're making some type of a large investment like that, you would certainly think that they would, do their due diligence on either what they're proposing or what's already there, that there's no issues with remodeling or changing or zoning or the type of business or parking issues or, all of those things. Okay. We'll put that one on there to see if we can follow up with that and come back with something definitive to talk about, or see if there's things we can do. The other one was form a collaborative committee between the city council, EDA, and planning to review and update the redevelopment master plan. I think that was something that Robert had talked about. So that was discussed at the joint committee meeting. And I don't know if there was, I can't remember what the discussion was at the planning commission meeting on that, but if that was getting a couple members from each group as a kind of a work or a task force or work group to look at that.
From what I remember, yes, that was the intention. I don't know that there was a lot of interest by commission members just because of another time commitment. But we could certainly do a poll on that and find out, if in fact we do have enough people. But at this point, it's still open for discussion if we want to implement it or not.
Yeah, I know there's a lot going on right now at the planning commission with some of the ordinance updates that they've been working on. But I think they're reluctant to start at least something right now with that.
maybe just table it and we can discuss it when we have a joint meeting together.
Okay.
All right.
That
That
works.
sounds good.
The other one was to form a study group for the use of the community center, community input, et cetera. And I guess just some of the update I can provide on that. We've been having discussions with that in closed session meetings to determine what we're heading, a sale or lease of that. And at the last meeting, where we're moving ahead from is we're going to develop I guess I'll call it a short-term lease with the volleyball group that's in there right now to go through this period from now till June 30th of 22, so June 30th of next year. Simultaneously submit bonding information to the state for the potential bonding dollars to remodel the building for the possible occupancy of the food shelf, the toy shelf, the expansion of the library that's already in there, the school district, which would come in with the teen study center in conjunction with the library, and the possibility of the workforce center having a satellite location in there. So really would turn it into a community services building, I guess. Instead of a community center, I would rename it as a community services building. Again, all those functions. And so that would give us the June 30th comes to a point where it's the end of the volleyball season, so we're not disrupting them. If something should change, by that time, we should know the outcome of the bonding for next year. If we are successful with the bonding, then to move forward with the remodeling, next summer through the fall. And then potentially those groups, if all those details are worked out and everything, that could reoccupy the building then probably, right after the first of the year, depending on the length of the remodeling work with it. Also, all of those groups would have to be able to fund, be able to support their use. So it would not be something that the city would be looking at, supplementing or doing that. It would, other than the city owning the building, but we would be looking at all those groups would pay their fair share in, paying for the utilities and paying for a determined price per square foot that would go into a fund for repair and maintenance on the building, both current and ongoing into the future. So that's the thought at this point.
I like it. I like it a lot. At least the building will be used for something that's being used every day instead of once or twice a week.
Mhm.
Yeah, it would be a lot of services and a lot of activity there, and again, that community services.
And if we could take the burden off the city to do maintenance on it by collecting some funds from these entities, I think that would be a positive thing.
Yeah. So I don't know from the study group if it's something that's needed right now. That's kind of the guided outcome that we have at this point. And it's still very early on. We're going to submit this information to the state for bonding, but also those groups are going to have to, we're going to have to work things out with them to make sure that they have the ability to pay those dollar amounts. And so far, they're all saying that they would be able to do so. So we'll see where that develops, but we'll have a lease in place until June 30th of next year. If for some reason that falls apart and the groups don't work, then we would look at doing a longer term lease with the volleyball group. But I think the council has decided at this point to take the idea of selling the building off the table. And where that comes from is just all the redevelopment that we have in the community, and that who knows what the future holds for a need for a building or the space or whatever. And once the building is sold, you're not going to get that back in the downtown area again.
Mhm.
So any questions on that?
That sounds good to me, Scott.
Okay. See, the last item that was on this list for follow-up was to review the vision for Sepulveda Boulevard and to create a pedestrian and bike-friendly boulevard since the roadway is now two-way. So that was just a comment that came up out of that meeting. And at this point, we don't have any, reconstruction plans or anything for that section. Shishki's overlaid the section of Sepulveda Boulevard last year for us between Margaret Street and Helen Street. And that will need to be done east of there on Sepulveda Boulevard, but there's no total reconstruction plans or anything back there in that area, but something that was brought up.
I think we should have some sort of plan in place because, depending on what happens with that building down there, if we get a nice restaurant or, bike friendly off the trail. The trail's the biggest thing. I think that's, if bikes were to come off the trail, somehow bringing them downtown, Sepulveda Boulevard, I think would be the kind of the pathway into the city from the Gateway Trail. And that's just a thought.
Yeah, and kind of a couple of the entrance points would be, basically Helen Street would probably be the pathway in to 7th Avenue, because you've got the pedestrian bridge that goes across to the high school, coming in from that area, and the trail that comes around the Franklin Pond, all come out to Helen Street there. And then the other accesses on Margaret Street to the trail, you can get on there at both locations. So Helen, for basically all the intersections, because you can Rotary Park
too, Scott.
Rotary Park on North St. Paul Drive, Helen Street, Margaret Street, And then also up on Henry Street, there's access to the trail on Henry, and then 120. Actually 120 really doesn't have access because of the bridge, so it'd probably basically be Henry, Margaret, Helen, North St. Paul Drive.
What's the
I,
one- what's the one
I
by
would
Eighth
walk down.
Third Bank?
That's Henry.
That's Henry, okay.
My wife and I walk down there probably once a week. We come down the trail, then come into town. I can't believe anybody would actually walk on Sepulveda. Maybe ride your bike, but I'd want to walk downtown, not on the back street.
Yeah.
I
Then
kind
we
of
cut
agree.
down.
You need to be on Main Street. I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go in the back door.
It's
To me,
not
I
all
think
that
Sepulveda would
attractive to
be-
walk back there and look at the back end of the buildings when you can look at the
Exactly.
face of their buildings going down Main Street and actually see what's there and probably have a much better feeling about what downtown is all about and what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I think the vision is more Sepulveda would be for bikes rather than walking. Just get them off the trail into the downtown somehow.
Yeah, and the other thing that, talking about bikes that maybe we're thinking about also is to disallow bikes on the sidewalk in the downtown. Just thinking about as we've been talking about, the movable tables and chairs and the planters and things that we're going to put down there. So you got people sitting out there and just thinking about people riding their bike down the sidewalk. Now you're going to be in close proximity to, front doors, somebody stepping out of a building, people sitting on chairs, and to have bicyclists going down the sidewalk.
Well, supposedly, I think that is already a law, isn't it? You're not supposed to ride on that.
It is, but it happens, and you don't want to get up with a bunch of signs, but maybe there's some, if we do something like that, there's some basic ones on the corners or something where it's, at least it's known to people, but just something to think about.
Maybe even do some painting on the sidewalk themselves that say no bikes, a circle with a bike and crossed out type of thing might work too.
Yeah. Skateboards is the big thing we've had trouble with.
Mhm.
Skateboarders. What else? So that was the last item that was on there for action items from the joint meeting, unless anybody has anything else.
Nope, I think that's it.
Nothing for me.
Okay. The next item on the agenda I had was I just put it on there as when we talked about that FEMA flood map previously. Just an update on that. We did meet briefly with the watershed and the DNR and FEMA representative, and they've given us a 30-day comment window of reprieve, because we're definitely going to be commenting on that. So WSB is doing a review for us, our consultant, on the floodplain, but it was what they're proposing on this first very rough draft, like I said, made many areas in the flood map. Tom Schiski's, basically their whole yard became in a flood zone.
I was gonna say, Tom, are you aware of this?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. We didn't have flooding problem until they redid 36. And when they did that back in the day, I've got pictures, we had water up to the windows on the doors.
Oh, wow.
It filled up the retention pond by the North St. Paul garage there, ran across, ran down North St. Paul Road in our gate and through our yard and out the back gate by Anchor. And that's when McKnight Avenue was 6 feet underwater. And that was like a year after that was all redone.
Whoa.
It was, I've never, we've been there since 1957. I've never seen water like that in our yard until that time. I actually took a lot of pictures of it, so.
And what's hard to understand what them doing. I mean, they're showing Shiskey's in the proposed flood area, but yet right across the street at the anchor site, nothing.
Yeah.
And it's basically the same elevation, but they show it potentially all around that area. McKnight Road 36, that whole thing is, and, I mean, some of that area was before, but they're proposing to expand that greatly, which would even take it out into Target's parking lot. A portion of the eastern portion of Target's parking lot would become a flood area. The whole Ideal Credit Union, the whole bank building is in the flood zone.
Yeah,
So a lot of proposed changes and widening or adding to areas for the flood mapping.
How did they come up with the evaluation to determine that this is the design they wanted to go with, knowing the impact it's having to a number of businesses?
That's what we're disputing with some of this, because they've got a model that they run, you know, based on the elevations and the locations, and then based off of the new 100-year rainfall events and all of that. But some of the detail that they're using, my understanding, instead of using you know, like a 4-day event, they're using a 24-hour event. So it's different modeling that's being used on this than is normally used. So those are some of the things that we're looking at, and going to come back with them with comments on, to make sure that it's correct and it doesn't impact people. Because if this goes into place and you've got occupied businesses and things on there, that's going to trigger flood insurance.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happened when our yard flooded was they had taken our open ditches out and put in pipe. And they said, well, the pipe was the same size, but we still had the open ditches. If you remember along McKnight over there, across the street from the ground round,
Yep.
there was a humongous ditch in there. And that
Yes.
took all the water through, and they put a pipe in there. And they said that pipe would handle the water, but it doesn't handle the water. So, you know, like I say, we get flooded out. Every time we get a good rain, we get flooded out, you know.
Hmm.
And I've seen stuff underwater over there, you know. I got electric motors sitting on the ground and air compressors. Even our equipment sitting in the shed, we had to pull all the stuff out and drain all the fluids and everything, because all the gearboxes had water in them from sitting on the ground. So,
Unbelievable.
you know, and it never happened before, but, you know, it could have been a one-time 100-year rain, but every time it rains a good 1.5 inches, our yard is flooded. So, you know, and it never happened before, and what do? You
How
know,
receptive are these folks to our feedback, and hopefully is this something that we'll be able to work in a negotiable arrangement, Scott, or don't we know that yet?
Well, they're very open to hearing comments, and this is not going to be something that's going to happen quickly, because even at this stage, they're taking all this information and the whole process for it to be implemented with FEMA. I mean, it could be up to 3 years before it's actually in play, because they go through this whole modeling thing. You know, they're taking our comment from this small level. Then once they get everything refined, then they do a whole public comment. I mean, open up to the whole area, because they're not just remapping North St. Paul, they're remapping this whole region that FEMA is working on. So there will definitely be an opportunity for more public comment and input from a greater level. But if they stand by their modeling and everything, there's likely not going to be a lot of changing to it.
Okay.
So we'll keep everybody up to date on that as that progresses, and if we need to, or can get a group together for that. But there will be public meetings to come. The other item I had on the agenda was update on 2564 7th Avenue, which was the Knick-Knack store that was in foreclosure, and the property that we purchased on the sheriff certificate sale. So we have that, we purchased it, the documents were recorded with the county and all that in place. So that's in place. I will tell you that we did receive a call from an attorney a couple weeks ago inquiring, they were just looking for contact because they were contacted about the possibility of putting things together to redeem the property. They're representing the owner. So that's really all I know. So I just wanted to let you know that it's a possibility that they will redeem the property before the 6 months is up. So at this point, we can't do anything. You know, it has to run 6 months. They've got 6 months to redeem it. And we have received a call already from an attorney.
Do we get our costs back on that if we have any costs involved in?
We do. We get our cost back plus 9.75% interest on our money. So just a quick update on that, you know, we won't be doing anything until, you know, we can affirm that we're going to end up with ownership of it. And that's 6 months out from I believe it was February 22nd, I think was the date that the sale took place. So that's all the information I have on that. And then commercial property for sale, you know, I had mentioned that. I thought we'd just kind of talk about that if there's anything coming up that we know about. And this goes back to the discussion we had on the former Oil Can Henry building. That is officially on the market again. You know, we talked about that before. I had talked to the property owner, and it's now on the market. $895 is the asking price for it. And there still is, I believe it's 2 years of a lease left on it with Valvoline. So they've got basically a guaranteed $10,000 a month coming in until the end of that lease, or if they can negotiate something with Valvoline to do a buyout of that. But the building down there next door, Handy Helps, has some interest in the property of possibly purchasing it and building a building there that would complement their use. So they're looking into things right now. So we'll see where if that goes anywhere.
Would that be in the floodplain also then, Scott?
It would be.
Yeah, that's so.
Yep. And that's the other important piece, that we want to make sure that everybody's aware of this, even from you know, this early time, even though it might not go into effect for 2 or 3 years out. We certainly don't want somebody going in blind, especially building a new building and then come to find out, you know, later that they're forever in flood insurance.
Yep.
But and that was one of the reasons we were so concerned. I wanted to make, you know, that we wanted to meet with the DNR and FEMA, because I don't want this to be prohibitive to development either. That, you know, people are going to see this and not want to do anything because of the concerns there. So we're going to do as much as we can with that.
Do you think that's a reason why that lot hasn't sold or anything hasn't been built on it? Because they realized it's in the floodplain?
Yeah, I mean, they can build on it. They're gonna have to raise the elevation. I mean, the old Tap and Grill site, you know, that has some of its problems because there's that sanitary sewer runs right through the center of that property. So there's problems on where you can locate a building, and you certainly don't want to go closer to McKnight because of the elevation of that. And if, you know, so situation where you put it is an issue, and then elevation, you're definitely going to have to raise the elevation of the building to meet these things. So it could be, you know, it's been unfortunate. The property owner down there has been completely unresponsive to us on cleaning up the site, and it's forcing us to move to the next level of you know, likely court to get that done, because there's been no response to any avenue that we've tried. But we get complaints from Target and from Ideal Credit Union and even Handy Helps in that next door that that property has become so overgrown and unmaintained, and it was never finished with the demolition before. So all we're asking for is that that demo gets completed and the site get restored to grass and it's maintained. And that hasn't happened.
Maybe we should condemn it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
why not? The guy won't
Next
respond.
piece will be to, they'll, I know code enforcement will go to a civil case on it.
Okay.
And take it to court. So that's on the commercial property status, unless anybody has or knows anything else on anything else coming up in town. Have not heard anything at all on the, again, the former K&J building. The sale took place early last fall, and there's been zero activity there whatsoever on the building.
Scott, the church across from Silver Lake, did that get sold?
It has been sold. I've left a message for, and I was hoping to have that detail today. I've left a message for the church here in town. I haven't heard back from them if
Okay.
they were the buyer, because I know they were pursuing it. So I'm following up on that, Kevin. to
Okay,
Try to connect dominoes.
okay.
Yeah, so other than that, I mean, those are the items that are going on with there. If anybody has anything, otherwise let's talk about some development updates.
I think we're okay.
Okay,
Let's go for it.
so just with that, projects continue. The downtown across from the post office, that project is moving along very well. Plumbing, electrical, everything is moving along very rapidly. Windows, most of the windows are in. They've also started setting some of the patio doors. They're progressing very well there. Work on the outside of the building, hooking up to some of the storm sewer. That was done between the west side of the building, between the chiropractic office and the building, getting that work done. More and more will come on as the road restrictions have lifted now. The Anchor Block former site, the Anchor View apartment is now well underway. They've got footing in and wall sections poured, and they're working on getting that done. They've been fighting the rain, unfortunately, down there with things, but that's progressing along pretty well. And the Quick Trip is planning to break ground May 31st, June 1st is their planned start date. The storage building is moving along very well. I would say they're getting close to nearing completion on that building down there. So that's progressing very well. The development over on 7th Street, between 6th Street and 7th Street, townhome project there. Mass grading has been completed over there. And again, same thing with the weather. They're also digging into 6th Street, currently doing the hookup for sanitary sewer to stub into that site. There'll be 18 owner-occupied townhomes over there, and also 3 single-family owner-occupied homes that will be part of that project. So that's underway. Trying to think anything else in the downtown.
See you tomorrow, dude.
Yeah.
M&I Townhomes, 100 units there, and they're going to be complete by this fall. And they're planning on start framing on their last units in July, and so everything would be completed there by this fall. Whether all the landscape is done, will be depending upon that. But all the buildings will be built by this fall for sure. And they've been building them as they're selling them as fast as they can build.
What a professional operation that has been.
Yeah,
Done a real nice job.
very well received. People coming in there, just really quick process up there. Other things, questions, comments?
I have none.
I have none.
Terry, you mentioned the Lilly building. How far along is that sale, or is it still in the negotiations, or don't we know?
It's my father-in-law who owns the building.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he hasn't discussed any of it with me, but I do know that they put in a counter offer. I don't know who the buyer is.
Okay.
So I'd like to be able to tell you more, but he hasn't confided in me about it.
Okay, thanks, Don.
That's about all I know too. Without getting Don in trouble.
Yeah, and I can tell you that, you know, they've contacted the city about purchasing it and, you know, and we'd love to see some redevelopment there, but it's just, we can't go out and buy a building without a plan, you know, to buy it and sit on it for who knows how long or what, with that. And this supposed offer that they have coming together, I mean, if there's a buyer out there that can buy the building and rehab it and use it for a use, so be it.
Okay,
What about the building next door?
The one on the corner you're talking, Tom? Or
Yeah.
the-
Yeah, the one on the corner, because we kind of figured that would all work together as one.
Well, and I
Piece.
think, if I'm understanding this right, the Lilly building, there's still where the hair salon is in the building. So there would actually be two buildings that would be left from this sale. Because the sale is just the main newspaper building. And then that other building that's owned by Lilly also would continue to exist. And then on the corner, the former Coffee Loft building, that's there and has recently resold, you know, this late last fall or during the winter, sold again to a different group. So that building is turned over many times in foreclosure and resale. And so right now it's within another owner's group.
To me, it's a code violation kind of a building that seems like it's ongoing. The new tenants come or the same, I don't know, same tenants or whatever, but you still got the same mess there that you had before.
Yeah,
Well, they attempt to do a restaurant or a cafe out of there, but it's not, that's all it was ever really set for, was a coffee shop. It doesn't have any facilities in it for cooking or ventilation hoods or anything like that. And small space in the front door, you know, they tried to do a loft in there and, you know, now you've got stairs and everything. It's just not conducive to it. The other thing I will say in talking about a restaurant is there is a restaurant that's supposedly coming, and that's the Brothers Eatery, and they're going in the former Subway building
Oh,
on the
nice.
east end of town. Yes, and they have a location in southern Minnesota where they've got their first location, and they're going to expand with a second location here. So they're saying that they'll have breakfast available all hours of the day, and so we'll see how that's going to go when they actually move in.
I like it.
Yep. So things are happening from that standpoint, and a lot of activity, and hopefully that COVID keeps its head down and we can continue to hopefully get back to normal. Unfortunately, our numbers are going the other direction right now. We're on the rise again here in Minnesota, or at least around here. So other than that, unless anybody else has any other questions or comments.
oh, looks good to me.
I'm good.
Very good. We'll update some of these things that we talked about, and our next meeting would be scheduled for May 11th.
Okay.
At 3:00. With that, I'll leave it up to I'll return it back to you, Chair.
Well, it looks like we're moving on to the executive director's report.
And I think you've pretty much heard that with all the activity that we just went through.
Okay,
So I will, I'll yield
We
that
need to-
back to you.
how about the treasury report?
No report.
There's
Okay.
no report.
Not from the city anyway, maybe from Don.
No. All the information would come from the city.
Right.
The acting chairman does not have a report. How about the mayor?
All I gotta say is that what Scott mentioned, that the numbers are going up again, and you know, it's a tough time for all of us and the city, and, you know, we got all these things that we want to do, and we just keep getting held back to putting them off. You know, the car show, you know, that's one thing, you know, are we
Yeah.
gonna have it in June? We don't know, you know, are we gonna have what do you call it, tonight, what do you call it? Curfew,
No.
we're gonna have a curfew tonight. I mean, these are just things that we're dealing with all the time now.
Yeah, it sucks.
So,
As far as the car show goes, though, there, you know, from what I understand, there has never been a reported case of COVID transferred through an open air venue. So, you know, 99% of the 99.9 of all COVID cases are transmitted from close contact indoors.
right.
So
So the
Right.
there's
problem
something
is
to be
that
said if you want to have the car show and people are wearing masks outside, I doubt very highly anybody's ever going to become contagious
right,
unless they go inside.
right. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I got is not a whole lot. So
One thing I just want to throw out to the group, I just thought of too, is, as the mayor mentioned with the curfew. At this point, there is no curfew plan for North St. Paul. The governor had left that up to the counties and the cities individually. We have no intention of doing a curfew. I had them put that out on our website that no curfew for North
Good.
St. Paul. Unless Ramsey County would enact one, I don't expect that to happen. Where there was discussion was doing it in St. Paul and Minneapolis again this evening to start at 10 p.m. tonight. And I haven't heard formally if that's taking place, but that will likely be the area. The other thing, the road construction and related work to begin again potentially next week if the weather straightens out here. And that's on 7th Avenue between 1st Street and 3rd Street to the west. And so you'll likely see road closure coming back in place with that, so that work can resume again for completion. And that could start next week.
Okay. Do we have any reports from any of the EDA members?
I don't think so.
Okay. How about future business? Anything on the agenda for future business?
I think Scott probably really covered a lot of that with the planning commission and the
Yep.
feedback from the last meeting. So I don't know if there's anything more than that, Scott?
No, not at this point. And again, you know, if there's something that comes up between now and then, we'll add it on there for the next item. I guess the only question is, everybody comfortable maintaining the monthly meetings? I had one of the members mentioned about, you know, should we go back to meeting every other month? Are you comfortable with staying with the monthly meetings? So just throw that out for your consideration.
I think we should stick with a monthly meeting until that building is done in downtown North St. Paul and some of the other activity over at the Anchor site. And then maybe come this fall, we can go back to.
That sounds good. And one thing I'd like to throw out to the group in relation to that, if anybody has any contacts or knows anything about outdoor furniture, and we're trying to request that from all over different vendors or even our engineering group. But again, looking towards outdoor seating, tables and chairs, even planters on different options are available to look at. As we look at that, you know, potentially we're going to be looking for, you know, in round numbers, roughly 40 tables and 160 chairs. They're looking to have everything match and be the same, and to have something that's decent. So if anybody knows anybody or vendors or anything that you've used or customers or whatever, looking to get some information.
Well, I have a daughter who works for Versalock, which is Patio Town. The only problem is they're back ordered on a lot of stuff.
Yep.
But I know that Goodrich Golf Course, their patio got a whole set of new tables and chairs. And they're all that plastic, and they actually have their logo embedded in so Ramsey County might have.
Oh,
Okay.
there's a good start.
Okay.
Scott?
Yeah.
I do know that International Market Square, which is sales to the trade only, but I'm sure WSB would certainly be able to purchase through them, but there's resources there if needed.
Okay, great.
Okay. Before we adjourn, what else is happening down on the Anchor site after the Quick Trip? Is there any more land available?
No, that finishes the site off.
Okay.
Will be completely finished.
Okay.
Except
Very
for that
good.
nudie bar that you referred to earlier, Kevin.
I was kind of hoping they were gonna put a small strip mall in there so they could have some shops, because I'd like to put an Anytime Fitness in somewhere close by there. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Scott, did you want to mention about our fellow commissioner's son? Did you
Oh,
want?
yes, yes, thank you. So Planning Commission, John Mungy. John Mungy's son passed away unexpectedly Sunday morning.
Jeez.
Yeah, and appears to be all COVID related. Both his son had it and their entire family has COVID. And I know, hospitalization with John's wife. John himself was in the hospital. And so our thoughts and prayers are out with them. I've been staying in contact with them, and if there's anything we can do to help them. But yeah, it's a very difficult time. His son was only 26 years old.
26 years old.
Yeah,
Terrible.
Unbelievable.
Well, get your vaccine.
right. So very
Yep.
concerning. But Lisa, maybe jog another memory. Coming up here on May 8th, we are planning the citywide cleanup. So open to residents and all over the city here. We'll hold it down at our Public Works building. We haven't done a cleanup in several years because we've had the bulk collection curbside, but we will be doing a city cleanup this year. And that will be open for, any and all items that you have to get rid of at home, and, electronics and appliances, brush, whatever you might have to dispose of. We're also going to have a shredded event, for shredding documents. So I'll definitely throw that out to you and all your businesses. If you've got documents that you need to shred and dispose of, we'll have shredding on site available. That'll be at the building also. And it'll run from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday, May 8th.
May 8th. Okay.
Yep, Saturday, May 8th. We're also working with the food shelf. The food shelf may have an event on that same day to sponsor and do a food distribution on that day also. So a lot of activities planned for May 8th. Also will be a citywide garage sale that we're sponsoring and registering. And the garage sale will be May 6th. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, May 6th through the 8th. So that weekend, a lot of activity in the community.
Good.
Have we
Hopefully we'll
determined-
have good weather.
Have we determined if there's any cost to shredding and
No
bulk
cost.
pickup or anything?
Everything is this will be a free event,
Unlimited.
unlimited. Just
Wow.
don't bring a 40-foot trailer full in.
I see Don's wheels just spinning. He's moving.
Yeah. I'm
We did
moving,
all-
so
we
I
did
need to
the
get rid of a
old
lot of
concrete.
stuff.
What's that, Tom?
We get all the old concrete steps and rocks and up concrete.
Right,
We do our part, help clean the city up.
You have any old machinery you want to get rid of, Tom?
Any what?
You have any old machinery you want to get rid of?
Scott said no 40-foot trailers.
Tom, you spent a fortune on conveyors recently, it looks like.
Excuse me?
You spent a fortune on new conveyors, it looks like.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, they look beautiful.
yeah.
So,
It was time. We needed a few.
yeah. Real good. Okay, well, I think we're done.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, I make a motion to
Second.
adjourn.
Second, first. Good
All in
job.
favor?
Kevin. Good job, Kevin.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. I'll try that again if I have to.
All
Be
right,
patient.
thank you
Baby
all.
steps.
All right,
Have a good day, guys.
all right.
Thanks, folks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
stay healthy.
Yep, everybody stay healthy.
Yeah.